George R.R. Martin has said that he uses to read H.P. Lovecraft's works when he was young, and who knows, he might still do to refresh his memory. And you can see that influence of it all through A Song of Ice and Fire. H.P. Lovecraft's stories are full of ancient powers, strange gods, and the idea that humans are insignificant and small compared to the vastness of the universe, the cosmic horror. Martin also uses the same feelings of mystery and unease in his own world, though he reshapes them to fit a story about politics, history, and war. We can clearly see that theme in the different religions and cults of the continents of Westeros, Essos, and Sothorius. For example, the Ironborn worships what they call the Drowned God, whose fate seems very much like Lovecraft's cult of Cthulhu, or that the other great old one, Dagon, which is a name that exists in the Iron Islands. Then we also have the followers of R'hllor, the Red God, or the Lord of Light. They also have a Lovecraftian feel, especially with their talk of fire, shadows, and the phrase, "The night is dark and full of terrors." Martin also borrows the names of places and mysterious lands directly from Lovecraft's world, or from his expanded mythos, which includes the works from other authors that are somewhat under his circle. The lands of Leng, Carcosa, Stygia, Ib, and Kadath all come from Lovecraft or the writers he influenced. These names are dropped into the story of the world of A Song of Ice and Fire without much of an explanation, which hints at them being far forbidden places that feel old and dangerous. So, the Isle of Toads, for instance, with its strange idols and black stones, feel very similar to Lovecraft's Deep Ones, which is also the name of a race that is mythological in the Iron Islands. Then there are also the cities like Ashai and Shadowlands, sounds like something straight out of Lovecraft's haunted dream worlds or the dreamlands of unknown Kadath. Another big connection here comes from the idea of lost civilizations and their creations. And at the Mountains of Madness, Lovecraft wrote about the Elder Things, an ancient alien race that built huge cities from oily black stones and created the Shoggoths. Martin has his own versions of this, like the greasy black stones scattered across the world, the White Walkers who are maybe this version of the Elder Things, and even the Valyrians with their dragons, who are like the Shoggoths, and dragons were once controlled through magical means, just like the Shoggoths, but eventually became too dangerous. And just like in Lovecraftian works, powerful empires like Valyria or the Gemstone Emperors collapse when they try to control forces beyond their understanding. That sense of the unknown makes the world deeper, or at least feel deeper, more mysterious and scarier because the reader's imagination fills in the gaps. Now, with the influence of Lovecraft on Martin explained in brief, and 50% of the viewers likely clicked off, let's get into the 8 Lovecraftian entities of this world, the topic at hand. We begin here with the Deep Ones. So perhaps the most obvious entities first of all are the Deep Ones, these creatures of myth in A Song of Ice and Fire, and the ones with the same name in Lovecraft's Cthulhu mythos share many striking similarities. This makes it clear that George R.R. Martin drew inspiration from Lovecraft's works when shaping his own lore and world. Both of these creatures from the different worlds are described as aquatic, inhuman beings that dwell in the seas, yet they have a strong connection to humanity through interbreeding. In Lovecraft's The Shadow over Innsmouth, the Deep Ones are a race of immortal fish-like humanoids who make pacts with humans, offering wealth and long life in exchange for breeding with them. Over generations, these unions create the infamous Innsmouth look, where humans slowly transform into Deep Ones themselves, or at least hybrids that have aquatic fish-like traits, and these are then destined to eventually return to the seas. In Martin's world, Maester Theron's strange stone describes the Deep Ones as queer, misshapen, half-men sired by creatures of the salt seas upon human women, suggesting that the same theme of hybrid offsprings and tainted bloodlines run here. Both versions also tie into the religion and worship of dark sea gods. Lovecraft Deep Ones venerate Cthulhu and Dagon, while Martin's supposed Deep Ones are linked to the Drowned God, and to strange cults such as those of the Thousand Islands who sacrifice sailors to fish-headed idols which are revealed at low tide. Even their architectural legacy aligns together. Lovecraftian Deep Ones live in ancient alien cities beneath the waves, while Martin's are credited with creating mysterious black stone monuments like the Sea Stone Chair and possibly the High Tower's base. In both mythologies, the Deep Ones serve as a reminder of the ocean as place of hidden horrors, where alien races older than humanity or mankind may still lurk, shaping legends, religions, and even bloodlines in ways humans barely understand. Now the second entity here is the Drowned God. So this one is the god of the Ironborn in A Song of Ice and Fire. Well, at least one of the gods there. The other is the Storm God. And the Drowned one shares many striking similarities with Cthulhu from Lovecraft's mythos. Both are beings tied to the ocean's depths, embodying the sea as a place of mystery, power, and terror. Cthulhu is described in Lovecraft's The Call of Cthulhu as a monstrous alien entity who sleeps in the sunken city of Arlae, awaiting the time when he will rise again. The drowned god, while not described in monstrous detail, is said to dwell in his watery halls beneath the sea, from which he creates the Ironborn in his own image. The religious rituals and language surrounding both deities are also closely interlinked. The Ironborn phrase, "What is dead may never die," mirrors Lovecraft's famous "That is not dead which can eternal lie." And it follows with strange eons even death may die. Both lines express the idea that death is not final, and that beings or followers tied to the deep sea gods can transcend normal humanity, or at least human mortality. This is reinforced by the Ironborn practice of drowning their priests and followers only to resuscitate them again, which echoes the idea of death and rebirth that clings to Cthulhu's cults. Cthulhu is further associated with the sea creatures like krakens and the squamous tentacled beings, while the drowned god is also tied to the Ironborn culture to krakens as well, sometimes even applied to be one himself, or at least to command them. Both deities are wrapped up in maritime lore, terror, and the alien vastness of the ocean, which inspires their followers to violence and conquest. Cthulhu's cult is secretive and fanatical, answering his calls, which drives them insane, or at least most of them insane, while the drowned god's worshippers believe that the deceased is summoned to the drowned god's watery halls by the entity's voice, kinda like another call. But there he can drink and feast for all eternity, which is also kinda like the promise for the followers of the cult of Cthulhu. So these two are tied in closely and worshipped by the deep ones as well, as we just discussed earlier, which implies that they are one and the same, but in different worlds. Now we come to the third entity, and this one is the many-faced god. Now you might be surprised that this may be Nyarlathotep, and he might be the most prevalent inspiration of many of the deities in the world of A Song of Ice and Fire. Amongst them, the many-faced god is the clearest parallel. The faceless men teach Arya that all gods of death are in truth just the same one, but of different faces of the same god. The stranger of the faith of the seven, the lion of night of Inyiti, the many-faced god, the great other, and the one worshipped by the Church of Starry Wisdom are all the same and one, like just one entity but with different faces. Anyway, they are all seen as the face of death and the unknown. This mirrors Nyarlathotep's central identity in Lovecraft's works, a god who assumes endless forms, both human and monstrous, to interact with mortals, and he is seen as the crawling chaos, slipping into temples and cults across the world, donning whatever mask suits his purpose. And where Cthulhu dreams in the deep and Azthoth gibbers in the void, Nyarlathotep walks amongst men, whispering and mocking, much as how the faceless men say that the many-faced god actually interacts with other mortals. It is also very interesting to note that there is one strange cult that has taken root amongst the masses in Westeros and Essos. This is the Church of Starry Wisdom, which is prevalent in many port cities across the known world, and it's actually the same name of the cult that worships Nyarlathotep in novel The Haunter of the Dark. One example is the Church of Starry Wisdom in Old Town, which is devoted to a mysterious god who whispers through a black crystal known as the Glass Candle. On the other hand, in Lovecraft's writings, the Starry Wisdom cult in The Haunter of the Dark worships Nyarlathotep directly, using a strange crystal called the Shining Trapezohedron to commune with him. This parallel is almost one-to-one direct tie-in, and the god of the Starry Wisdom in Modern's world is almost certainly a direct nod to Nyarlathotep in Lovecraft's works. And put together, the many-faced god, the stranger, the Starry Wisdom deity can all be read as different cultural mass of the same underlying being, which is exactly how Nyarlathotep works in the Cthulhu mythos. So the fourth one here is the King in Yellow. So here we have the God Emperor, or the Yellow Emperor of Yiti, and his Carcosa city in George R.R. Martin's world, which are almost certainly inspired by the King in Yellow from Robert Chambers' works, which was later absorbed into H.P. Lovecraft's Mythos. In the world of Ice and Fire, Yiti is ruled by a 69th Yellow Emperor, who dwells in Carcosa, which is a shadowy, sinister-looking or sounding city that borders the Hidden Sea. The title itself, Yellow Emperor, immediately sounds like the King in Yellow, a central figure in Chambers' works, associated with madness, forbidden knowledge, sorcery, and a city called Carcosa. And the connection grows stronger when we realize Martin places his Carcosa near a great hidden lake, which echoes Chambers' Carcosa, which lies by the Lake of Hali, a detail that Lovecraft and later writers of the Cthulhu mythos also preserved. Lovecraft himself referenced the King in Yellow and Carcosa but only obliquely, and his imagery echoes it closely though, and therefore the yellow God Emperor of Yi might be a representation vaguely of the King in Yellow, who is actually Hastur in the works of Robert Chambers and the Cthulhu Mythos, but here of course, in the world of Planetus, he is the 69th God Emperor. The fifth entry here is the Black Goat. See, the Black Goat of Qohor, which is a city in western Essos, is worshipped and given blood sacrifices in exchange for fertility, and seems very likely to be inspired by Shub-Niggurath, which is also called the Black Goat of the Woods with 1,000 young, and this one is an entity or a god from H.P. Lovecraft's Mythos, an outer god. In Lovecraft's writings, Shub-Niggurath is a chaotic, fecund, and terrifying deity and outer god that is often referred to as the All-Mother, who is tied to endless fertility, monstrous offsprings, and a wild forest. And the fact that the city of Qohor lies beside an immense dark forest strengthens that connection, and also Shub-Niggurath's cult is actually associated with woodland rituals, blood sacrifices, and primordial wilderness. In The Whisper in Darkness and other stories, Shub-Niggurath is described as a figure worshipped in rural places, with blood rites that are often bloody and sacrificial. In modern lore, the Qohori Black Goat, the cult of that Qohori Black Goat, also demands human sacrifice, which makes the parallel even stronger. Both are gods of ancient dark fertility whose worship requires feeding them blood and life. Modern's naming of the deity as the Black Goat is almost too on the nose, as it mirrors Lovecraft's epithet of Shub-Niggurath almost exactly, especially the Goat of the Woods phrasing, or the Black Goat of the Woods with 1,000 young. Anyway, by drawing on Shub-Niggurath, modern makes the Black Goat not just a local god of Qohor, but a reflection of an archetype, a cosmic fertility deity whose worship requires death to sustain life. And maybe there are other gods here in the world of Essos and Westeros that are like the Black Goat but barely mentioned. The sixth entity here is the Toad deity, or the Toad idol of the Thousand Isles, which strongly recalls Tsathoggua, one of the great old ones from Clark Ashton Smith's Hyperborean tales, which were later incorporated into Lovecraft's shared mythos. Tsathoggua is described as a bloated, squatting, toad-like or bat-like god who dwells in caverns beneath the earth, a being of slothful hunger that receives worship from degenerate or inhuman cults. And the idol of the Isle of Toads mirrors this imagery very closely. A 40-foot toad statue carved from oily black stone, worshipped by fish-featured islanders, both details that echo the strange cults and alien stones that litter the Cthulhu mythos. The oily black stone, in particular, is very notable since in Lovecraft's and Smith's stories, strange black monoliths or black stones and alien minerals can be seen, and these compose some of Tsathoggua's idols, which are usually massive and grotesque and also made of the same material. The statue's size here in the Isle of Toads and the devotion of its followers suggests that it's not just a symbol but an object of active worship, perhaps even a conduit to an ancient being, and this aligns with Tsathoggua role as a slumbering god, often passive yet ever present, drawing worship from strange cults without the need to act directly. The seventh here are the Old Ones. The Old Ones of Leng in Martin's version may be his interpretation of the Old Ones or even the Elder Things from the Mythos of Cthulhu, both described as ancient races that predated humanity and once ruled the world before falling into ruin. In the Cthulhu Mythos, contact with such beings often leads to insanity, just as Martin describes the warriors returning mad or vanishing entirely after venturing into the ruins of Leng to visit the Old Ones. Even the stories of the god empresses of Leng having congress with these beings mirrors Lovecraft's themes of human forging forbidden pacts with alien intelligences. The island of Leng in George R.R. Martin's world strongly echoes H.P. Lovecraft's Plateau of Leng from the Cthulhu Mythos. In Lovecraft's writings, the Plateau of Leng is a mysterious far-off land associated with ancient inhuman beings with strange ruins and connections to the outer gods. Therefore, Martin's Leng here acts as a deliberate nod to the Plateau of Leng, while his Old Ones combine elements of the Elder Things, the Great Old Ones, and other ancient beings from the Cthulhu Mythos. And the last one we have the firewyrms. See, here I might be stretching a little bit, but let's end with the fiery, legless creatures of both worlds. Both firewyrms, WORMS of the Cthulhu Mythos, or at least from the Call of Cthulhu RPG of 1981, and the firewyrms, WYRMS of Valyria, share striking similarities. To begin with, both are described as serpentine annelid-like creatures rather than traditional dragons, and they possess worm-like or snake-like bodies without wings. They are tied to fire and heat in a way that goes beyond natural biology. Both also have an association with destructive infestations or eruptions. The firewyrms of the Dreamlands swarm in cycles of devastation, while the firewyrms of Valyria infest the underground lands of the 14 Flames. Another commonality lies in their connection to ancient primeval forces predating man. The firewyrms of the Mythos, the Cthulhu Mythos, comes from the Dreamlands, from the deep bark forests tied to a timeless alien ecosystem, while the firewyrms of Valyria were said to have existed in the 14 Flames area before the Valyrian Dragonlords arrive, or the villagers there who tamed the dragons, which suggests here that they are relics of an older world or an unnatural creation. And lastly, both of them are represented with an aura of hostility or an anger or hatred for humanity. Anyway, those are all the Song of Ice and Fire's Lovecraftian creatures and entities, and those inspired by the ones from the Cthulhu Mythos. If we might have missed out on one or two, then do let us know in the comment section below. And so with that, we end this video. Now if you like this video, then watch this other one too, the one in the end screens. Do hit that like button for support and also hit that hype option for hyping up the video to other viewers. So subscribe and we'll see you guys in the next video. Take care, fam.